John Durham's report. He basically simply filed some charges against Perkins Coie attorney Michael Sussman. Michael Sussman is a cybersecurity expert, and the charges that were filed against him were lying to the FBI. The indictment by Durham, however, and usually these are very short, they just have a short little brief on what the charges are and how they had stemmed and how they came about. But Durham put in a 27-page report, and his findings are absolutely explosive. And he's pointing out basically that the Russian collusion hoax against Donald Trump, which began in 2016, absolutely was not only a hoax, but it was planted by the deep state, and the mainstream media ran with it. Now, I say all of that simply to frighten you, because you should be frightened. Several things we need to note. Number one, there is indeed a Marxist-oriented deep state that is working against all things Donald Trump, against all things conservative, against all things constitutional. The deep state is there to manufacture and to manipulate public opinion against any conservatives, conservative candidates, conservatives in Congress, conservatives in the state legislature, conservatives in the White House. They shaped the narrative, and the narrative against Donald Trump was that he colluded with Russia, all of which was a grand hoax, a grand lie. But the sad thing is, no one is going to be held accountable for these lies that were planted throughout the government and in the media. And not only so, but as Trump was president, this lie, the Russia collusion hoax, absorbed all the oxygen in the room. That's number one, a Marxist-oriented deep state. Number two, this is a deep-seated conspiracy to overturn the freedoms of the United States. John Durham's report shows no less. The 27-page report details the coordinated actions of multiple players in the highest echelons of the United States government. And the key findings are the following. And I've tried to break them down into simple, digestible facts, but I have a number of them, and we'll just go through them quickly. Number one, they were to devise, that is, the deep state players were to devise allegations regarding a secret communication channel between the Trump Organization and Russia's Alpha Bank. These allegations were designed to trigger an FBI investigation into the Trump Organization and a particular Russian bank. And that's where Sussman came into play. That is, this man Sussman, he actually, this cybersecurity expert, he actually orchestrated, along with another group of cybersecurity experts, the entire Russia collusion hoax. Number three, they worked with operatives of the Hillary Clinton campaign. Hillary Clinton herself signed off on the lie that was told against Donald Trump. And their efforts, and by the way, they say that their efforts, they realized that they were never going to get an indictment against Donald Trump, but that was not the goal. The goal was to put blockages in his way, to stop what he was doing, to stop the conservative agenda. And they were successful in that to a certain degree. Their goal was simply to damage the campaign at first for Trump's presidency, and then if he became president, because this began in 2016 where they began the Russia collusion hoax, their goal was to damage the presidency, to make it and hamstring him so he could not do what he wanted to do and what the American people elected him to do. It involved, nextly, Jack Sullivan. Jack Sullivan, incidentally, is a national security advisor to President Biden right now. He himself was involved in the conspiracy. Sullivan and Jennifer Palmieri, that was the communications director for the Clinton campaign, actually teamed up, and then they briefed the mainstream media on the Trump-Russia collusion story. So the mainstream media then ran with it on a nightly news basis, and then the Democratic National Committee also participated in the overall scheme, and they brought in their operative, Alexandra Chalupa, who in turn began working with Ukrainian officials to give the appearance of legitimacy. So what do we have? So you have these different operatives, Michael Sussman. You have Clinton campaign operatives. Then you have Democratic National Committee operatives, such as Alexandra Chalupa, who now contacts Ukraine and the officials there who are also in on it because they're all in collusion together. Now Chalupa from the DNC goes to the Yahoo News reporter, Michael Isikoff, who then reports regarding all of this on Yahoo News as if we have some legitimacy here. The entire thing was made up out of whole cloth, and yet it was all over the news. And it was in the universities, and our university students gobbled it up. And I saw all over Facebook these university students say, Russia, 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 and Trump, Russia. It was all manufactured for the stupid to go along with them because people are not looking behind the scenes. They're not looking at really the origins of it. Not only so, but they also began creating such an impression that they wanted to get FISA warrants on different persons in Trump's campaign, and that's exactly what they did. And so they got examinations into Carter Page, and that's exactly how the FBI began to work with the FISA warrants. Furthermore, after Trump wins the May 3rd, 2016 primary in Indiana, the colluders now, this is all in Durham's report, they met again. They said, you know, what are we going to do? Because he looks like he's going to take the nomination for president. And so what their goal is to figure out, and this is all documented in Michael Sussman's report and Michael Sussman's material and John Durham's report regarding Michael Sussman and the indictment against Sussman. They grappled, how are we going to roll this out in the country against Trump? And some of it we've already explained. All the conspirators, including Hillary Clinton herself, understood this would never amount to a real indictment, but it would, of course, roadblock Trump's presidency if he became president. Then they brought in British spy Christopher Steele, who was brought into the conspiracy in April of 2016. Now, I've said earlier in this segment regarding conspiracy, and I use that word purposefully because I want you to hear this. You know, when you use the word conspiracy, the left becomes unhinged. They just become radical. They, you know, what are you talking about conspiracy? You think everything is a conspiracy. I want you to listen very, very carefully to this particular statement. After Christopher Steele was hired with approval from Hillary Clinton, he hastily produced an undated, infamous, what we know of as the Steele dossier, and here's what he wrote. Now I want you to listen to what he had to say. There is a well-developed conspiracy of cooperation between Donald Trump and the Kremlin. You see, they use the word conspiracy. And all they want to do is get all the lefties to march in step with them. And so they say there's conspiracy between Trump and Russia, or was, and they use the word conspiracy for it. In truth, the left does what they always do, and that is they accuse others of what they themselves are guilty of. Have you noticed that? Every time they accuse people of something, they're the ones guilty of it. And that's exactly what happened here. Now, why do I say all of this? Number one, it flies maybe under the radar somewhat. Ladies and gentlemen, we're about to talk with Joe Nelson about the COVID vaccine mandates. And this comes out of the same government that has conspired with the FBI, the CIA, the intelligence community, the military, along with the mainstream media who walks hand in hand with the Democratic National Committee, the bureaucrats, the gigantic bureaucracy. These are the ones who are conspiring against Americans. This is what's happening in our country. And they're the ones who are giving us the mandates for the COVID vaccine shots. You need to think about that.